Death is the one story every life shares, but the conversations around it rarely happen. Welcome to the show that opens the doors to the funeral profession. The people, the stories, and the truths most never hear. This is As the Hearse Turns.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is Saturday.
It is.
I mean, it's a gloomy Saturday here at home.
Yeah, it was raining a little bit this morning when I got up. It doesn't look like it's raining anymore now. We're just hanging out today. What are you guys doing?
Same. Just hanging out, relaxing. Guess just kind of making plans, getting ready for next weekend, seeing what we're gonna do.
What's next weekend? You're
4th of July?
but you're not away.
No.
Okay.
But there's like some stuff like they have that big the Jacobus Blast over here behind the intermediate school.
What's that?
So it's like a festival, and they have bands throughout the day, food trucks,
Fun.
vendors, and all. And then the fireworks. Obviously, we have the best seat in town for fireworks.
Yep. We used to go to the park right near where the JCC daycare was and the ambulance company. Yeah, they used to do, well, I guess they still do fireworks there. So
Yeah,
This
that's where
used to be
they
down
set
the
them off. Oh, that'd be nice.
yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out. I'm kind of gonna wait till the last minute. I know Nathan and Max will definitely be going down. I have some things that I'm working through that I gotta figure out before I commit for that full week.
Well, you
Yeah.
figure too. It is only 10:02 on Saturday, and a lot
Mhm.
can happen for us between now and then.
Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's where everybody's like, let's make plans. Like, well, we can't make plans. I don't know what my schedule is going to be until, consider everything soft unless you hear from me 20 minutes before.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I think things have been a little slower for you down at your funeral home, but it seems like whenever you go away, things pick up.
Maybe I should just go away and work remotely.
You could do that. We would approve that. Yeah, we've been fairly busy. We actually got 2 calls yesterday. And people talk about obituaries and death notices. It
Mhm.
seems like it goes in spurts. Those 2 calls yesterday, those families want no record of anything, no obituary, no notice, nothing. And then I do have a pending call right now. And actually, I was just talking to you before we hopped on. I was texting with that family a little bit. So if something, comes up today or tomorrow, we'll go into the office and work.
Yeah.
But yeah, summertime is notoriously a slower time of year in funeral service, and people always want to know why. You're not dealing with cold and flu season. You don't have all the respiratory viruses, depression. We have sun, maybe not today here in York County, but when people get outside and they're feeling good and you get that sunlight and, just the endorphins, it makes you feel better. You're not depressed. When you go into the winter months, you have seasonal depression, you have holiday parties, people are drinking and driving. So, winter time tends to be a busier time of year in funeral service.
And we've had a very, mild summer so far.
Mhm.
Now I know next week, and that's where we'll unfortunately probably see a few calls or something, because we're talking heat indexes over
Hot.
110.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's,
Yeah.
guys, that old saying, hydrate before you dihydrate, that's true. Take care of yourself.
I'm double fisting this morning.
I do a cup in the morning, and then, I do a cup of water in the morning, and then, the coffee sustains me throughout the day.
I'm still super thirsty from my dinner that I had Friday night. Caitlin and I went out to eat, and there was just a lot of sodium and salt. And so I've just been so thirsty since we had that dinner.
I saw her pictures of the leftovers, so God only knows how big the actual portion was, if that was the leftovers.
Yeah. I had never been to Del Fresco's until we were in Texas, and Disrupt Media took us for dinner. And then something popped up on Instagram, and it was like this couple's meal that you could share. And I sent it to Caitlin, and they were advertising for the one in Pittsburgh. And I was like, let's go. We can go on a date to Del Fresco's. So we did that. But yeah, it was really cool to go out and visit her. It was almost a 4-hour drive to Cecil.
Right.
And I've determined that I didn't choose the passenger princess life. The passenger princess life chose me. I'm not meant to drive long distances. And it's funny because I was in sales for 12 years prior to getting in funeral service, and I would cold call all day long, literally in my car from 8 to 5, stopping at businesses. And I would stop at probably between 15 and 20 businesses a day. But Nathan usually drives, and just with the way people text and drive now and everything, I get anxiety about driving long distance. But got out there Friday, maybe around 3:30, checked into the hotel, got ready, ran over to her funeral home, got to see her lift, how they get the caskets up from the prep room upstairs. They have like a little hidden hole in the floor where they are able to, bring the caskets up from the prep room.
Okay.
Got to see her prep room. She showed me around, and I love seeing how other funeral homes operate and how people do things. And I think one thing, and I think you'll agree with me, we can all learn something from one another in this
Yes.
business.
Yes.
You're never done learning, and if you are, then you need to get out.
Yep. I say it all the time. If you think you know it all, hang it up. Hang it
Yeah.
up. So I'm laying in bed this morning at like 1:30, and I get an email to my work email. And it's from a gentleman, and he sends me a news story. And it's out of I'll let you guess which state it's out of.
Okay, tell me more.
So charges have been filed against a pair of mortuary owners accused of mishandling the remains of at least 24 deceased people.
Colorado.
Yep.
Got it.
The 10th Judicial District Attorney's Office announced the charges against Brian Lee Cotter and his brother Christopher Cotter, the owners of the Davis Mortuary, on Thursday afternoon. And the announcement followed their arrest in the morning. So apparently, this came to light last year. So last August, the inspectors from the Office of Funeral and Mortuary Science Services found 24 decomposing bodies hidden in the mortuary. The district's attorney's office said at the time 19 bodies had been identified, and previously law enforcement was attempting to have all bodies identified before filing the charges. They've used all available technology to identify them, and the two men are each being held on $1 million bond and face 125 counts of abuse of a corpse, 9 counts of forgery, and more than 25 theft charges, because apparently they were not properly depositing the required funds into pre-need trust accounts. So this is one I'm going to keep an eye on, because I'm curious to see, and I mean this is going to be drawn out if they were just arrested yesterday.
It's insane.
Charged.
So I would be willing to bet my right arm that if I found a Facebook page for their business, if it existed, they're absolutely doing nothing to remain transparent with their community, to build that relationship and trust. And, we've had this gentleman come onto our page this morning by the name of Jeff. And Jeff has been very critical that you and I do not put our general price list on our websites. And it is not required by the state board or the FTC that we put our general price list on our website. So until it's required, I personally, I probably won't do it. We've talked about putting some other pricing on the website, but the general price list can be very confusing for the consumer, and they think they're comparing apples to apples when they're comparing price lists, and they're really not.
Yeah.
But this person appears to be solely focused on price. But our goal, and what my mission is on my business page, and definitely on this page too, is to be transparent. We have nothing to hide. These directors obviously had something to hide. I guarantee you there is no social media on their page. There is nothing, because they know what they're doing is wrong.
So I've got another screen pulled up here on the side because I'm on the desktop, and I can't find anything on social media for them.
Surprise, surprise.
Now their website is still active. their actual funeral home website, but no obituaries have been listed since August of 2025. Um, and that's probably when things came to light and they
Yeah.
forced them to stop operating. But again, bad apples, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in Colorado is taking steps to, um,
They are.
better get better, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's not going to happen overnight, but like I said, this is going to be one I'm going to be curious to watch, just to see the final outcome. And I believe one of the brothers was even the county coroner as
Nice.
well. So,
Yeah. That's that's unfortunate.
and again, it's this type of stuff that everything that we try to do to take two steps forward, something like this makes us as a industry and a profession go three steps backwards. But these are the ones that we have people that are sitting there saying that we're doing a disservice to the profession and things like that.
That's Tim.
I just got one. Oh yeah, it's us. Love you, Tim. Love you. Um, but yeah,
Tim,
we.
get to work.
Oh, that's right. He's on a service this morning, isn't he?
He's probably sitting in the back of the church.
I love his socks. I love his
Yes.
socks this morning.
Yeah.
But no, back to the original train of thought is, my problem with everyone coming on and saying, all we're doing is one, we're trying to make money. And folks, this social media, it looks like there's a lot that we put out content wise, but the little bit that we put out, that there it doesn't even cover the cost of the software we're using to be able to go live to you guys right now.
Yeah.
And again, it's separate from the funeral home, so they're not intertwined, businesses. But to sit there and say, all we worry about is for clicks and comments and this, that, and the third, it's like, do you have nothing better to do?
I took some screenshots this morning. So there was a gentleman that apparently 7 weeks ago left a post left a comment on one of our posts, and someone had replied to it this morning. And so I saw it, but I did not see this initial comment 7 weeks ago when it popped up. And the gentleman's name is Todd, and he's an assistant. It took me 15 seconds to find out what funeral home he works for. But he says, I want a funeral director, not a social media person / funeral director. And then I guess you had replied back 7 weeks ago and you said, what are you insinuating? The fact that Catherine and I are on social media educating that makes me less of a funeral director.
Yep.
And he says, you're making money off clicks and likes while saying you're educating. I specifically remember you asking about people possibly paying to subscribe to you a while back. So I do have a subscription page on our Facebook account.
Yes.
On Wagner, Elfner, and Berg. And I have started moving like 80% of my content over to that page because I know the people that are there are genuinely interested in learning. It's not going to become a back and forth bashing discussion like some of our other content, and a lot of the other content that we are, openly putting on the web page that's not on the subscription side. Some of it is still bringing negative comments, and I'm slowly starting to move that stuff over to this page, which is what we initially had talked about, because I don't want that stuff on our business page.
Yeah.
But Todd, just like you pay for, a Netflix subscription, or, if you want those apps, you're going to pay for them. If you want a backstage pass to a concert, you're going to pay extra. You don't have to. It's an option. If you want to subscribe, you can. If not, but it takes time, energy, and effort to make the content we do. And it's amazing too, because we'll take time to do this. And there are people that come on and argue with us. Okay, if you don't agree with it, just keep scrolling. But the more you engage with us, it actually helps us. So Todd, Todd has probably pushed this video or whatever it is back into the algorithm. So
Thank you,
that's
Todd.
yeah, so thank you. And that's how it works. But he says it makes me wonder how much time you're taking away from the families and deceased that you serve. So we've talked about this. The second we get a call at our funeral homes, Chris, we drop everything and social media gets put on the back burner because those families become, they're number
Priority.
one to us. We also batch record. So like a lot of the videos that are being posted on our pages now were recorded months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And like we just talked about, right now I'm in a little bit of I'm in a big dry spell, but
yeah,
that's why you're seeing more content, and things that I'm pushing out and stuff like
right.
that. Um, you know, again, I've learned very quickly by us putting ourselves out there that there's going to be folks that
Yeah.
don't agree. And, for someone that claims to be so passionate and, caring about the profession, nothing. I think I even asked 7 weeks ago in a comment to him, I said, please give me an example to where we, have did a disservice to the profession. If us calling out bad apples, if us being transparent and us, being honest makes us bad people, then I don't want to be a good person.
Yeah.
So
How many people do we have watching?
right now, 61.
Okay. So I'm just going to say something, and this might resonate, it might not. But if you're a funeral director, and you're kind of creeping around watching, and you really don't care for Chris and I and what we're doing on social media, in the last 4 weeks, I've had 4 families come to us because of social media.
Yeah.
The one family in particular, I know they are paying. They initially, with one of their family members, had used one of the low cost firms in our area. And this family was also with us for one of our open houses. So I found our open houses to be very beneficial because, yes, of course, you know us from, social media and being online, but you actually get to meet us in person and see that we're more than just, what you see online.
Yeah.
We've showed every square inch of that facility, but this family is paying maybe double or even triple to come to our funeral home. Now, again, they went to a low cost provider in our area previously, but we opened the doors. We've remained transparent. Chad was actually meeting with them the other day, and I always know what families I can do this with, but Chad was meeting with them, and I was in my scrubs. I was in those scrubs that I was wearing in my one picture I posted yesterday. And I peeked my head into the arrangement room and I said, hey, because I initially I took the first call when the first call came in, but I said, hey, how are you? And they said, were you just embalming mom? And I said, well, I spent a little bit of time with her this morning and she looks really nice. But we're able to have those conversations, and they were comfortable asking me that because of that relationship that we've built. So
Yep.
4 families that would never have come to us if we weren't on social media. So if you're a funeral director and you're pushing back against social media, someone in your area, I guarantee you someone in your area is doing it, and they're going to start building relationships with your families.
And I mean, here's the thing. It's not something that, even if you're not an owner or something like that, because when I started on social media, I don't own a funeral home.
Right.
I started just with posts and things like that. And, you begin to gain traction and people in the community know you. I was out the other day and it was actually a memorial service. We were doing a memorial service at one of the local churches. And next thing you know, one of the state senators, the local state senator, comes up and, hey, I follow you on Facebook. Keep up the good work. Thanks for everything you do. And it's like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've been out and, it's a double-edged sword because everywhere you go, everyone knows you. So,
Was it one of the local senators here in York?
Yeah, it was
Kristen. Kristen's like, my husband knows when something happens to me, I'm coming to you. I'm like, yeah, Kristen, I'll take care of you.
Uh-huh.
Don't you worry. She's very kind. Kristen.
She was very nice. It was her and her husband that were there at the service.
Yes. Yep. He's great.
And then we started going off on side tangents about how we could make Pennsylvania funeral service better. So we're gonna sit down and have a couple chats.
I've had a couple conversations with her about one particular director.
Oh boy.
Surprise, surprise. You go on their Facebook and there's no transparency.
Again, I don't. What is there to hide? Unless if you're not being there, and you go to most funeral home Facebook pages or anything, and all you're going to see is obituaries. That's all. Or
Maybe a picture of kittens and a Helen Keller quote.
well, that, and the other thing is just stock images, just stock images. That's all. You don't know the people, you don't know who they are. So it's like, come on, if you've got a problem with what we're doing, I don't care if we go down to 1,000 followers. Those 1,000 people are the ones that I'm here for, that legitimately want to know what we do and how we do it and get educated. So if you don't like it, just unfollow. There's no reason to sit here to criticize other people for wanting to know education and bashing them.
So someone had sent me a really interesting video last night, and I don't know what state it was in. I'm going to have to dig through my pages and find it. But it was a mom who lost her daughter. I want to say she was in the Army.
Okay.
And the mom, I feel like she initially wanted cremation, but for whatever reason ended up going with traditional burial. And on the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of her death, the mom had the casket disinterred. And when they opened the casket, there were blankets wrapped, like to make it look like they were formed around a body, but there was no body in the casket. And again, I know sometimes what we see on social media isn't always real. It might be AI, but I really want to do some digging on this one.
So the body. So what was it? A direct burial?
I would assume so. I don't know that she was able to ever view the body.
See, that's, again, there's liability issues there. Like, again, who performed identification to know you've really got, Katharine from the hospital, and that's Katharine in the casket, without someone from the family just doing a identification prior to a direct burial. And what's even more concerning is they're saying there was no remains in the casket.
Right, nothing.
So where's the body?
Or was it maybe cremated by accident? Because the mom
we're gonna have to do some digging on that one.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be an interesting one to follow.
Yeah, I gotta find that.
You have to send me the link so I can do some digging with you.
Yeah, I don't know what page it's on. So
we have a couple questions from last night when we posted that we were going to have a coffee chat this morning. Lori asked, why is it so common to have so many names and the title of the funeral home?
Are you able to pull up the comments?
So these are actually on
from
the post. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, we added our names to the Berg name, and people ask who Berg is. Berg was the previous owner. We bought the rights to use the name indefinitely. Do we plan to drop it? I don't know. Yeah, I'm Wagner. Nathan's Elfner. Berg was the previous owner. And I think it's fairly common when people purchase a funeral home to keep the former owner's name.
And that's really what happens, because most of the time during an acquisition, unless you're just buying the assets of the company, like the book of business and the building and the equipment, but also the name would be included with the sale of a funeral home. Let me turn on the comments in the chat too, so we can see those if they come through. Don asked, do you do transports for the medical examiner or coroner's office? I understand throughout the country, many coroners and medical examiners' office contract with funeral homes to do transport to their offices and do not do their own. I know we personally do not.
No.
There are there smaller towns will probably contract out to funeral homes and things like that, but not here in York County. Baltimore, when I was down there, they had their own staff responded to anything within Baltimore city limits. And then outside of the city, throughout the different counties of Baltimore County and Maryland, they normally contracted with removal or transfer services to bring loved ones into their care. But a forensic investigator or like here in New York, a deputy will first go out to the scene, conduct their initial investigation, and then they arrange for transportation if it's deemed necessary to take the individual or the loved one back for further examination. Because a lot of the times, if a investigator or a coroner comes out to the scene and there's no other signs of suspicion, or the primary care doctor's willing to sign off on the death certificate, then the funeral home will come directly to the scene, and the funeral home that the family has chosen takes custody of the loved one for the funeral process. Dark says, do you find that families that you work with are usually kind and courteous? Have you got any examples of times where you've had to de-escalate aggressive family members?
I can think about the one family at Harkins that comes to mind, where the gentleman got very irate with me because he was very upset with me. So one of the parents was prearranged, but when we write up our contracts, we have to put today's prices on the contract. And he was very upset with me that I wasn't putting the prearranged prices on the contract. And that's legally, we can't do that. Legally, that's not how that works. And he got so irate with me that, he started pounding his fists on the table and screaming at me during these arrangements. And I was alone at the funeral home, and the spouse was there and apologized profusely after those arrangements, but it was very scary. I actually had someone reach out to me too the other day. They said, when you ever go out to a residence, do you ever feel unsafe? Do I carry? I don't.
There was that one call you and Dakota went on.
Oh yeah. State police were there.
Yeah. But the state police were like, we're going to move this knife.
Was it the knife?
Yeah, there was a knife on the counter.
Was that the one where they wouldn't let us take the person? Yeah. That was scary, but so that arrangement at Harkins, that was probably one of the last arrangements I did at Harkins. That was in the midst of all the craziness, and we were very busy between both funeral homes, and that's when I said we need to bring Chris on. And in fact, when that family came back to pick up the cremated remains,
that was my first day.
Yeah, you were there, and I think I had Nathan there as well. I needed backup because I thought I am not putting myself, I thought this guy was going to punch me in the face.
And again, I don't think they're aggressive or violent, so to speak, toward us intentionally. I think, again, because no one has ever educated and how, what to expect when a pre-need goes at need.
Yeah.
That, they're looking, well, why are you putting these different prices? We contracted 15 years ago, and again, because they don't understand and they just see this much larger number, they're going to get a little emotional. But sometimes you need to know how to, we're all adults, so we all need to know how to control our emotions and regulate them. And sometimes that's not the case. Now, I get folks that sometimes will, at the very beginning of, arrangements or something like that, are very much on guard and just, on edge because they've just lost somebody.
Right.
And Any funeral director that will tell you different is lying to you. If they say sometimes as a funeral director, we are a punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
there's a line. And if you cross that line, I'm going to let you know you crossed that line. But we do take the brunt of things, and that comes with the job.
Yeah.
There's no way
Yeah.
around.
The call that Dakota and I went out on, that person had, it was communicated to us that the next of kin had some mental uh, issues, disturbances, and it became a little concerning about an hour into it. I mean, we were there. It was like in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're trying to talk to this person and explain to them that, you know, we're the funeral home and you called us to come pick up your loved one, bring them into our care, and they would not release that person to Dakota and I. And started, you know, pacing around the house, and one state trooper was there. And I remember asking, I said, are there any, the person went upstairs. The next of kin went upstairs. And I said to the family friend that was there, I said, are there any firearms in this house? And they said, yes, there's a handgun upstairs. And I'm thinking, why did this guy go upstairs? And so I said something to the state police officer, and they brought in backup. And Dakota and I ended up leaving that night. We all left because this person was so mentally unstable to the point where they thought that they could keep their loved one in the home. I mean, we were genuinely concerned that they were going to try and bury this person in the backyard and continue collecting their Social Security. But it was such a messy situation. The coroner had never seen anything like this. State police had never seen anything like this. I sure haven't seen anything like it. And I'm also not going to overstep my bounds. You have not given me permission to bring your loved one into my care. So I'm backing away.
Yeah.
And we all left. And I ended up filing reports with the appropriate departments later that morning. And then the coroner ended up going in later that day. They ended up getting the individual into the psych ward, I think. Ended up using another funeral home because at that point I said, even if they call us, I'm just not comfortable with this situation anymore.
Yeah, no.
But that was scary. That was a very scary situation. But I always have someone with me when I go into a home.
Yeah, and there, it's for protection, it's for liability reasons, it's for safety. There is a laundry list of why we would take multiple people to go on a home removal. Absolutely. It's, again, you never know what you try to get as much information as you can, but sometimes the information is lacking, or people don't know how to visually guesstimate weight of a person, so that's important to know. Tracy asked, how do you bathe and wash and dry their hair? I've seen so much of how you do other things, but not on this.
Why don't you take that one?
Sure. Best way I can explain it is just as if you were going to give your newborn baby their first bath in the sink. You're bathing them. We have a constant running water supply that comes onto our embalming table through a hose. And as you're embalming, I use soap constantly to massage the extremities, just to help with circulation and distribution of my arterial solution. So you're constantly bathing from the beginning of the embalming procedure to the end of the embalming procedure.
Yeah.
Normally, I will do hair toward the end of the procedure,
Yep.
and then I will put conditioner in and let it sit in as I'm aspirating and as I'm closing my incisions. And then I'll finally remove the conditioner, because you just want, sometimes some folks just haven't had their hair conditioned in a while because they've been very sickly, and the longer you let it sit, sometimes the better, because if it's someone that has really frail hair and you're trying to comb out those knots, you're actually pull out the hair, and you just want to be careful, and you want to be very respectful for the person you're caring for.
That's one of the reasons too why I let hair air dry, because if I'm standing
Yes.
there with a hair dryer and constantly brushing, you're pulling out hair.
And the heat damages it even more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I will towel dry, and one of the things
Mhm.
they teach you in school is, especially if we don't have a photo of the loved one yet, and we don't know how their hair was parted or styled or anything like that, you just towel dry and just kind of comb it straight back, and then
Yeah.
you can go from there.
Yeah.
And then wonderful, wonderful Phoebe asked, "How do you ship cremated remains back to their home country of the person that wishes to have them shipped?" So international shipping, it's the exact same thing.
Expensive.
It is because it's by
Pricey.
weight and things like that. Cremated remains in the United States, though, folks, just a little bit of, in case you're ever on Jeopardy, can only be shipped through the United States Postal Service.
And it's around
You,
150, right?
I think
I thought it was like
it,
maybe it's
dep-
not.
it depends on the weight. So if they're going in the black vinyl temporary urn, it might be around $125, $130, 150, depending on where it's going. But if you're shipping, let's say, a Mackenzie, which is a urn vault,
Heavy.
which is marble composite, it's a lot more heavier. That's going to be more of a cost.
Mhm.
So it's important that you understand that, because a lot of people are like, well, why can't you just ship it through FedEx or UPS? Because they won't accept it. They will only people that will accept cremated remains are the United States Postal Service.
So while we're talking about this, let's talk about traveling with cremated remains. What should someone pack those cremated remains in if they're taking dad on the plane as a carry-on, and what sort of documentation should you have?
Well, first and foremost is you got to understand you cannot check cremated remains. They have to be taken as carry on. Um, and then you have to make sure whatever urn or container that you are that the cremated remains were placed in is a TSA approved urn, because some urns cannot be X-rayed. If so, they are not considered TSA, and they will not allow it through security. Um, Main thing you're going to want to carry, you don't need a death certificate for cremated remains unless you're going international. Then you might need to have that when you get to customs at the country you're trying to enter into. But domestically, all you need is the cremation certificate and the urn. That's it. And all you have to do is, when you get to TSA, you take the urn out, you show them the cremation certificate. And I've never seen TSA actually open the urn to check. Normally, what they will do is Michelle gets it all the time because of her last name, because she decided to keep her maiden name. They swab your hands, and then they put it under a little scent thing, and it says, okay, this is cremated remains. However they do that, I don't know, but I guess they just want to make sure it's nothing hazardous or explosive
Yeah.
that you're trying to bring onto the plane. But it's a very simple process. It's not difficult, it's not hard at all, and it's probably cheaper than
Yeah.
trying to mail or ship them, because I have had, from my previous position, numerous times where the United States Postal Service has lost someone's loved one.
And if you don't have that paperwork and you want to, take dad to Florida, for
Mhm.
example, maybe you want to scatter him, contact the funeral home that did the cremation or the cremation society or whoever, and they should have that
Copy.
paperwork. They should have
Yeah.
copies.
Yeah, because there's nothing there's no like stamp seal or anything like that on most of that. That's stuff that can be regenerated. And then if for some reason the funeral home does not have it, they can call the crematory, and the crematory can issue, a duplicate for, or whatever reason, or a replication of it for you. But yeah, not difficult at all. You know, again, just international gets tricky, and international gets very, very expensive. So I always
Yes.
tell folks, if you want to take, a loved one, and you want to scatter them off the cliffs of Moher or something along those lines, what I would do is make sure that, plan your trip and bring them with you, versus shipping them there to have someone do that for you. So that's all from the questions that were on the post last night, but let's see if we have anything here in the chat.
We have a lot in the chat.
I see that you're doing a live segment. I have a question. You were dressing for doing, you were showing how you dress to do an embalming, and you had your scrubs on, and you had your white jacket on, and then you had your plastic protective covering over your clothes, and put your black gloves on to show us, put your pink gloves on to show us, but your long hair was hanging down. Please tell me that you tie that beautiful hair back so it doesn't get anything in it.
I've cut my hair so it's not long anymore, but anytime I am actually embalming, my hair is tied back or it's clipped back. But when I'm doing makeup or getting someone dressed, if I want to wear my hair down, I wear my hair down. I always do what I feel safe doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you tie your hair back?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Nathan does too.
You know, it's a serious thing. I mean, God, oh my God, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. But if you think about back in the day, most old school embalmers would pour themselves 2 fingers of bourbon, scotch, or their favorite whiskey, and they would light a cigarette, and they would, embalm.
Sometimes without gloves.
Without gloves, absolutely. A lot of the old school guys. Now, I will never embalm without gloves, but I'll be the first to tell you, I don't wear a respirator.
Me neither.
I don't wear a respirator.
Sometimes I don't wear my lab coat. If it's like a warmer day, those plastic gowns can get very hot, and I need to be able to move freely. But if I'm not wearing like long sleeves, I wear gloves that come up that protect my arms.
Stay tuned for next week. Me and Katharine talked. We're going to show Katharine's preparation for embalming and how Chris embalms. Yeah. We'll get some comments. I guarantee it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think that what I wear is bad, I'm being transparent with you. Go into some other firms and see what they supply their people with. I worked for a director that wouldn't buy gloves. We had to buy our own gloves. So, and as an owner and supervisor of the firm, if someone comes to us and they say they need something, we need to buy that for them.
So going back to the story real quick, I'm just going back through the comments here. I think someone said the lady was in Florida.
Vince, is this for the mom that buried her daughter and then they disinterred?
That's what I'm thinking here. I'm just trying to catch up because somebody also said they believe it was military.
Yes. I know she was in the Army, I think, and I don't know if I want to say she was in a car accident. I've got to find this.
And then Jason says, believe me, the folks at Dover, if military, I don't find that believable. But I don't think, since it wasn't a line of duty death, I don't believe Dover was involved in this.
No, they weren't. Gosh, it's going to drive me crazy. Let me see. What other questions are on there?
Keith said, okay, you've convinced me. I need to get on your subscription page.
Hey, Keith, I got the email from Exam FX. So I met Keith, again, social media and connections. I met Keith through our social media, and he has his insurance license. And we talked on my way out to Pittsburgh, and he recommended a company called Exam FX. I'm not going to lie. I'm really struggling with this studying for this exam.
You have what?
Can you wear that blonde wig and go in for me and just take the exam?
I can try. I've lost some weight, so maybe I can try.
So yeah,
there was somebody that asked a question, and I really want us to talk about it real quick. It was about someone said they were confused about explaining the pricing from pre-need to at need. And I really want to try and talk about that real quick. Jason asks, does PA require each funeral home owned by a proprietor to have a supervisor assigned to each location like New York? Yes. So Katharine is the supervisor for Wagner, Elfner, and Berg, which means she cannot be the supervisor also for Wagner, Elfner, and Harkins. So I'm the supervisor for Wagner, Elfner, and Harkins down in Delta. So yes, very similar. So Keith asks, so is your process with the trocar the same for the cranial cavity as it is for the abdominal cavity? It is not. So if someone has undergone a full post where the cranial cavity in the brain is examined, the brain is removed. And then what happens is as we are injecting up the carotid arteries and the left or right carotid artery, whichever one is best, because most of those vessels are severely severed after an autopsy. What we do is we use hemostats and have to clamp off the vertebral arteries around the circle of Willis to maintain the pressure and maintain the arterial fluid so that the capillaries through the head do receive that fluid. But the trocar is not used on the cranial cavity. Absolutely not.
So I think I found the article, and I actually just sent you the YouTube video. Can you pull the YouTube video up on the screen here? Can you email it to yourself?
Let me mess with it and see what I can do here.
Tallahassee mother seeks answers after daughter's casket exhumed. Funeral home accused of deception. And this was posted 2 weeks ago.
Give me a second.
And that's one thing I've never done. I've been asked about that before. A disinterment. I mean, that's a process that you have to go through. It's not like you can just call up the cemetery and say, hey, I'm sending a backhoe and we're going to disinter so-and-so. I mean, there are often legal steps you need to take in order to do that. But I have never been involved in a disinterment.
Look at this. We're learning some new stuff today. All right, so
answers 1 year after losing her daughter in a Texas car crash.
I already lost her tragically. Now I got to do this to bring her back up to find out the truth.
I'm Lynthius Cheney, your Northwest Tallahassee neighborhood reporter. She says she was forced to exhume her daughter's casket after suspecting something was not quite right with the funeral arrangements. Brittany Britt Delva died June 1st, 2025, after a crash in Texas. ABC 27 spoke to Delva's family shortly after the accident.
The outpouring of love that I've been receiving, it's amazing. You know, she's truly going to be missed.
The 29-year-old Army specialist was remembered by family as athletic, caring, and deeply involved in her community. Her mother, Sharissa Barton, says the family initially planned to cremate Delva after her death. But Barton says questions started days before the funeral after she received a call from the military.
So I went up to the funeral home to speak with Mr. Hall, and he just was like, Sharissa, I'm sorry, I dropped the ball. I didn't get the necessary paperwork from the medical examiner to have her cremated.
Barton said she moved forward with the funeral, believing her daughter had not been cremated, but she says something did not feel right after the service. She says she eventually filed paperwork to have the casket exhumed.
They had to lift up a whole bunch of stuff, and her remains was in the box that comes from the crematory in the bottom of the casket.
Barton claims a blanket inside the casket had been stuffed with plastic to create the impression a body was inside. Her attorney, Craig Brown, calls the experience traumatic and says legal action is coming.
This is not a mistake. This is not an accident. This was absolutely intentional. And we know it was intentional. We know that she was intentionally misled.
I spoke with Alfonso Al Hall, owner of Al Hall Tillman Funeral Home. He told me, quote, no comment due to pending litigation. The funeral home later released a public statement saying many of the accusations are, quote, inaccurate and misleading. The statement also says Hall fully and transparently engaged with a regulatory complaint process and fulfilled every obligation required of him. I submitted a public records request to Florida's Division of Funeral, Crematory, and Customer Services, seeking information about any complaints or investigations investigations connected to the case, and I'm awaiting those documents if any exist.
And it was had me questioning, is that really my baby? But I just prayed, and I'm just praying that what I have right here is my child. So yeah.
Attorney Brown says they expect to file a lawsuit after reviewing documents related to the case. I will keep you updated on those developments. In Northwest Tallahassee, Olynthius Cheney, ABC 27. A Tallahassee mother says.
So I just heard some stuff here that I didn't hear before. Did I hear them say that there were cremated remains at the foot end of the casket?
So it sounds like the funeral director, instead of doing, so the body was cremated. Now the question is, was this truly her love? Was this truly her daughter? And unfortunately, there's not going to be any way to find that out because there's no way you can do DNA testing on cremated remains.
Right.
Now, he said he dropped the ball and didn't get the paperwork for her to be able to be cremated. So we need to now have a direct burial. So now you got to buy a casket. And guess what? You're going to need to use a hearse. And you know what? You're going to need a funeral director at the graveside and this, that, and the third. So she was intentionally misled. And again, this is speculation, not knowing all the facts, to have to pay more for a service. Unless the guy's just saying, because I dropped the ball, I'm going to do everything else for you free of charge. And all you got to do is pay me as if it was going to be for a cremation. Which
And
I find hard to
obviously,
believe.
every state's going to be different, but it's not like I need to reach out to the coroner within a certain period of time to get someone cremated. I've had someone in my care for a month. Now, of course, I had to ask for extensions from the state to keep them with us. But finally, when we got to that 30-day mark, we got permission from the coroner because the person died actually in Florida. So I had to get permission from the coroner that was in that county in Florida to cremate. But again, education.
Yeah.
We're not tied to a certain time frame.
It doesn't matter that, it's been, a week or it's been whatever. It's, a simple fact that, okay, you didn't get the paperwork from the coroner to cremate by this date. Well, brother, pick up the phone and get it now.
Yeah. You
Just
can
'cause you
bury
didn't-
people and have them disinterred years later and cremated.
Yeah, it's happened. Absolutely. Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like there was nobody there and the body was missing. It sounds like this lady was completely taken advantage of.
Yeah.
By a really, really not nice funeral director, because there's so many words I want to say about that guy right now. Now,
We have
again,
some interesting reviews. Again,
from their
reviews.
funeral home.
Yeah. Reviews. Read them.
All right. So Jamie says, so how do you lock in the prices? I guess talking about for pre-need. Come on, Miss Insurance License Studying person.
So how do you lock in the prices? You pay, you pre-arrange and you pre-fund. So if you want, direct cremation, no services, and that total comes to $3,500, you put $3,500 aside we use an insurance product at our funeral home. And say you're 50 years old when you pre-arrange, but you live to be 80 years old. Well, obviously over those 30 years, prices are going to increase. And what we do is on those contracts, we write today's prices on those contracts, but we're only paid what is in that insurance policy. So we end up taking a loss on 99.9% of all pre-need.
Yeah. And that's why when people are like, oh, you just want people to prepay because you're vultures and this, that, and the third. I was like, I flat out told somebody one day, I was like, if we really, really didn't want to think about the family, we would never push pre-arranging.
Yeah.
We would never push pre-arranging. We want people just to pay at the time of need.
Yeah.
So I keep seeing, Vince, I'm in Eastern North Carolina. There's one mortuary that does transports and the other company that just transports for hospitals and funeral homes. And that's very common. And then he also says, Also, I sent you a video of a funeral home burying the wrong person in the wrong grave. One lady was 54 and the other lady was in the 80s. They kept telling the funeral home and that was not her loved one. The funeral home commented it was an honest mistake and it was the hospital's fault. The one was a home removal. This happened in the southeastern part of North Carolina.
And this is exactly why we have implemented a policy at our funeral home that if we bring someone into our care and family or next of kin or someone's not present, like if we go to a hospital, we don't go to the hospital room. We don't go on to the floor where the person died. We go down to the morgue. And we're trusting that the hospital has identified that person as that person, and we're bringing them into our care. So what we're requiring is that someone next of kin or someone that the family appoints actually come into our funeral home to identify them prior to cremation.
Mm-hmm. And the same again for a direct burial. There, if there's not going to be any type of public viewing or anything along those lines, you need to know who is who and things like that. It's again, it's just one, providing a level of comfort and confidence to the family, and two, it's protecting the licensee and it's protecting the business.
Yeah.
So Sue says, come here, Gil. If a loved one naturally passes at home, how much time can you spend with the loved one before reporting the death? For example, if you want to invite local family for immediate viewing in the home. It's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be variable based on the environment where the person is. Is there air conditioning? Can you lower the temperature in the room? Can you open some windows if it's not 110 degrees outside? I've seen it before, because think about this, guys. If someone passes away in the middle of the night and then the other person's spouse or a caregiver or something like that doesn't come in until 8 or 9 hours later the next morning, that person's been fine. So I mean, if there's time, report, whether if you're under hospice, call your hospice nurse, get those things going, but communicate with your funeral director. Say, hey, listen, we have some family coming, we're not going to be ready till 5 p.m. That's fine. Do you want me there at 5 p.m. or do you want me to start getting our team on the way at 5 p.m.? That's a question I'm going to ask you. I'm never going to rush you. Now, if it's a scene where law enforcement is present, sometimes law enforcement will kind of urge things along because they will not leave or clear the scene until the loved one has been transferred into the care of the funeral home. So every scenario is going to be a little bit different on there, but there is no rush to, just make, if folks need to come say goodbye and it's going to be a direct cremation and you'd rather do it there at the home versus doing it at the funeral home, that is completely fine. You have time.
We actually had this situation a couple weeks ago, and the family had contacted me when the individual was put on hospice. And during those conversations, when I'm kind of given a heads up, I always tell them, when something does happen, don't feel like you need to rush to get us out right away. Of course, hospice will call to notify us that they have passed. But if you want to sit with them, have family come over, call us when you're ready. And so this person actually passed at, I don't know, it was like around 8. It was between 8 and 9 in the morning. And hospice had contacted us. And I said, well, I know the family will want to spend some time with them. So when they're ready, just make sure they have my number and then they can call us. And Lorena and I ended up going out around, I want to say it was 3:00 in the afternoon, but they turned the air conditioning on, made sure the room was cool, did all the, all the right things.
Yeah. And again, take your time, and that's one thing. Like when funeral directors, well, we got to get this figured out. We got to get this figured.
Yeah.
Guys, as long as I have a basic understanding of how I need to care for the individual when they come back to the funeral home. That's the only question I'm going to ask you right away.
Mhm.
You know, are we planning on doing a public viewing and visitation where the embalming process would be required? You know, and sometimes you may not know because you want to talk to families. That's fine. That's
Right.
why there's refrigeration that's available and things like that. So there, don't feel rushed and pressured into having to make decisions right then and there.
Yeah.
Phoebe,
And one way too that you can care for your loved one if they are going to be embalmed and you are going to have a viewing, but you want to spend some time with them at home. If they're in, say, a hospital bed at home or even just a regular bed,
yes.
get their head straight. Um,
And when we
it's
say elevate them, we're talking about just put like maybe an extra pillow behind the head. I
yeah,
mean, every little bit of help, and because if they're laying on their side or something like that, you know,
all the
the
blood pools in that
pulls
spot.
to the lowest point, and
Mhm.
you can get what we refer to as postmortem staining. Um, so some will be able to clear, and then depending on circumstances, it may not clear. And that's when you're going to get into a situation where very, very heavy and very, very opaque cosmetics would need to be used. Um, Phoebe asked, do you have to have a tetanus shot to embalm?
As an employer, we have to offer the hepatitis B shot. And actually, most schools are going to require that for
The full
not, well,
series.
yeah, yeah. I think I could have signed off on a waiver at school, but I did get my Hep B
Yeah, I've had
vaccine.
all of mine.
There were like two, I
It
think.
was either 2 or 3. It's because God, we're talking five,
Yeah.
6 years ago. But it's like 2 or 3. It's a series that you have to get. Um, Jen asked, when you embalm, is it bad if any of it gets on your skin? I mean, so I'll never forget as an apprentice, I was embalming with my preceptor and
You were
um,
embalming your preceptor or you were embalming with?
embalming with
Got it.
my
Okay.
preceptor. And um, we were doing hypo. We were hypoing an extremity. And what hypoing is um, if say you're having trouble getting down a leg or something like that, and if you say you've raised the femoral artery and it's very sclerotic and you're still not going to be able to get arterial solution down there, you can hypodermically with an infant trocar or a hypodermic trocar be able to inject your arterial fluid directly into that extremity. And as she pulled it out, it the stopcock didn't stop, so it just went everywhere. And I'm standing on the other side of the table, and even in full PPE, guys, face shield and everything. Guess what's still like your neck and all that? Intrafiant all over my neck, and it didn't burn anything like that. Of course I went and, washed it off right away, but I didn't have any, it like didn't bleach, scar, or burn me in any manner. Now, I think if I would have had like an open wound or something like that, it wouldn't have felt very, very good,
I
but
did dump a whole bottle of cavity fluid on my hand. It was one of the, yeah, I mean, I had like the tube and I'm holding the bottle up and the bottle wasn't
oh,
attached and it got all in my glove and my hand did turn like an orangey color. My skin got really dry. It was for about 2 weeks. Um,
really?
yeah. And
Okay.
I've had a trocar. Have you ever had a trocar back up on you and spray in your face?
It will happen. You only let that happen once, and then you start paying attention. And let me tell you, and I should have talked about this when I did the Trocar video, which I see everybody loved. But it was you've got to pay attention not only to the loved one you're aspirating, but also the sound of the Trocar. You'll hear the difference,
Yep.
and then you look at that tube. And if that starts going the opposite direction, you better be able to turn that bad boy off. Or what I've done is as long as you pull the trocar out and vent it to allow air to get in, you'll be able to clear. But if not, it gets messy real quick.
And just to clarify, the trocar is used to remove liquid contents from inside the cavity, the abdominal cavity. And so I had one of those back up and spray me in the face. I also did get, I was raising, this is back when I wouldn't always wear a mask. Sometimes I would, but I opted to not wear a mask this day. And I was raising someone's femoral, and I had an intern working with me, and I went to go raise the femoral, and the aneurysm hook slipped. And the intern, her eyes got real big, and she looked at me and she's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have a piece of fat on your lip. It was a little yellow piece of fat, like right here. So I was like, ugh. I will always wear a mask from now on. And I always do.
Oh man.
Yeah, nasty.
Let's see.
And
Charlene
this is
asked,
what
"Would
this page is for. We get real and raw here.
I mean it's unfiltered? Would there really be changes in the body in that short period of time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Decomposition starts immediately upon passing, and I've also seen where decomposition, depending on the person, if they were in hospice or something like that, um, starts prior to the person passing away. Because when you hear of someone like having gangrene or necrotic tissue, even before they die, that just means their skin has already passed away, or died, and the cells are dead. So yeah, it can happen that quick.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jamie said, when I had our stillborn baby, we were able to sit with him, but I felt like he started to decompose instantly. He turned a dark red color. And that just, again, especially as an adult, it's a much bigger shell.
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of time, but little teeny tiny babies, it very quickly,
Very quickly, especially skin slip with little babies. And it's always so sad. But yeah.
Nancy said, it took my cousin 2 weeks to be ready for his funeral viewing. Why? I don't know. I'd have to know more.
Yeah, who planned the funeral service? Maybe they intentionally booked out 2 weeks because they were waiting on family to come in from out of town. We can get someone ready quickly. If we need to have a funeral service the next day, I mean, we have to move quick and make some things happen, but we can do things in a very timely fashion for families.
What was that? The family I served before I went away on vacation. The call came in, and then we had services within 72 hours.
Yes.
And that was what the family wanted.
Yep.
They wanted things done quickly and expeditiously. And again, as long as all of the stars and planets align, we're able to do that. But there could be a lot of factors why that took 2 weeks, whether it was at the family's request, whether if the funeral home was that busy. So a couple different things there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Vince says, again, I'm a long distance truck driver and I work out of New Jersey. I was given a run starting east of my house and got to spend the night at home. I had supper with my mom and girlfriend, was leaving for Texas on Saturday. My mom passed away the next morning. I sat with her until the funeral home got there. They sent 2 guys out due to my mother's washer and dryer in the hall. They told me they would have to bring in extra help to bring her out. I told him to get her ready and would bring her out. And that's all it ends. But if there are certain obstacles in the house that you need additional help, like if you have to lift somebody up and over those pieces of equipment, that may require additional personnel, because I'm not going to have one of our team risk a back injury to do something unsafe. So if there needs to be additional personnel, there needs to be additional personnel. We've had it where we've actually had the local fire companies come and assist for certain types of removals.
Yeah.
And then Douglas, on the pharmacy side, do you find it harder to embalm with certain medications like blood thinners or heparin? Or blood thinners if they're on heparin or something like that, you're going to have excellent drainage.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have very good drainage. But I've never really seen the only thing would be certain types of chemo treatments or something like that, where we just have to be cautious, and you need to know that the person isn't expelling any type of radiation at the time for
Mhm.
embalming.
I think also with Coumadin too, like my grandfather was on Coumadin and he bruised easily. I mean, you could touch my grandfather and he would bruise. You're
Bruise.
not really going to be able to clear that during embalming.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
just,
going to have to be
yeah.
cosmetized.
Yep.
Phoebe asked, "How soon do you have to donate your organs that they take after you pass?" So let's break this down really quickly here. Um, for organ donation, if you pass away at home or you pass away outside of a controlled environment of a hospital and you're not on life support, you're not going to be able to donate organs. Okay, because the organs are no longer viable. When someone passes away and say they are declared brain dead, and the organs are being able to be sustained through ventilation, life support, whatnot. Once the donation is decided upon, there is literally a room full of surgeons that surround the room. They line the room, and there is a clock on the wall, and they have to harvest the organs before that countdown is complete, and those organs have to then, that's why you see where people, the organs are flown by helicopter, or they have organ transplant vehicles that have lights and sirens on them. There's a strict protocol for that. Now, after if you've passed and you're outside that window, you can do long bone donation, you can do skin bone donation, cornea donations, and these are all things that the donation companies and their folks will talk and ask the families about. And I'll be the first to tell you that no matter what you select will not inhibit you from being able to have a public viewing or visitation for your loved one. Now, that said, there's a lot more work and preparation that goes into caring for someone that has undergone those types of donations. And funeral homes may charge additional fees for those restoration efforts.
So I did have one person in my care who was they were organ donor, tissue donor, long bone. They were a larger individual. And I want to be cautious with what I say here because I will never say, don't do this, don't do that. You do what you want to do.
Yeah.
The family had selected a particular casket. We could not get an oversized casket for this person. And with what had taken place with this donation, we were unable to have a public viewing for them. Had we had a larger oversized casket, I think we maybe could have made it work. But, and just in a very, delicate and compassionate way, I had to talk to the family about this. And they said the casket is more important than having that public viewing. So, I hate to say it, but sometimes, if you have a larger individual and you have this, standard size casket, it's kind of like, sardines, squished.
Yeah.
And it's not the most pleasant way to view someone. But the
No.
family, yeah.
I've said it before. Embalming is only 80% of viewing to get but how the person is presented in the casket, how they're positioned, do they look comfortable, are their hands actually resting on on their lower abdomen, or are their hands like up in the air and there's a big gap between. The little details matter. Now that may be something as a director I criticize and I look at when especially if I go to a different funeral.
Yep.
But I think even to the family, it's like that person doesn't look natural. One of my biggest pet peeves is if you put a person in, you casket a person, and their ear is that there's so much filling in the casket pillow that their ears pushed up or bent under, where
Yeah.
it's not resting naturally. It again, you're not going to want to sleep like that. So because it's not comfortable. So it's again the presentation of the person actually looking comfortable.
So I want to say something it was really interesting about, I don't know, it was within the last couple of weeks. I went to my in-laws, and my father-in-law had gone to a viewing for someone that he knew, and it was at a different funeral home. And now that Nathan and I are doing this, everyone is constantly talking to us about funeral service if they go to another funeral home or whatever, and just giving us feedback. And my father-in-law said, come around to the other side. Sam's getting ready to leave for the World Cup game. So I told him to come give me a kiss before he leaves. So my father-in-law said to me, hold on one second.
Wait, will be here any minutes. I'll see you.
All right, I love you.
Love you.
Bye. Have fun. Be safe.
I
Call
will.
me when you get there.
I will.
And he said the person looked terrible. He said they looked terrible. And I said, well, how did they pass? And he said pancreatic cancer. We all know when someone dies from
Yep.
pancreatic cancer, they're extremely jaundiced and yellow. And sometimes you can't always clear all of that during the embalming process. So while we're quick to criticize and go in and look at someone and say, oh my gosh, they look terrible, sometimes there's only so much that we can do during embalming.
There are certain things that are outside of our control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, this is where transparency and communication is key,
Mhm.
because had that funeral director gone to the family and spoken to the family and say, listen, but prior to the first viewing, it's,
Yeah.
hey, because of this is why, your mom, dad, whomever may have this appearance, and this is what we've done. However, this is why, the yellow tint or stain or something like that may still be there. And you know what? Families will explain that to folks as they come in,
Yeah.
but they don't want to, they're scared to have that conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, so I said to my father-in-law, "Oh, well, if that's the case, then, I'm sure they did their best, but this is what happens when someone passes from pancreatic cancer. This is how they typically look when they come to us." So,
Yeah.
it was just about having an open conversation and educating him on something that he was not aware of.
And it's also important to explain, again, this is where trained embalmers that have gone through school, not somebody that just, let me tell you how to embalm and you go embalm, like some places operate. Understand that if you are not careful with your fluid selection for somebody that's jaundiced,
They're going to be green.
they're going to turn green. And
Yeah.
and the only thing you're going to be able to do is try to airbrush and cover that and cosmetize that. But
Yeah.
you've got to know your chemicals. You've got to know the chemistry. You've got to know, how to do a proper analysis of the decedent, and then you choose your arterial solution and you figure out, and then guess what? Even after you started, so say you figure, this is the solution you want to use, this is what you're going to do. As you're embalming, we're constantly, as we're massaging the limbs and things like that, we're feeling for fixation. We're looking at, distribution through the capillaries. So somebody asked the other day, I think in the video you did about preparing embalming solution, where they're like, well, what are the colors for? Well, some are an actual dye and some are tracer. And the tracer is for the embalmer. As we're injecting the arterial fluid, we're able to see it replacing the blood in the arterial system. So we're seeing that the distribution is actually taking place through the circulatory system. But so say you may see that hand received the fluid that's pink, it's nice, but say it's still flaccid, it's not, it's not firming up. So it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Especially if you're using like a 30 index solution or arterial fluid, it's like, what you should start getting like instant firming. but maybe there is some type of medicine or something that's taking time. So what I've seen is that if you've got good distribution, you've got the color in the hands and things like that, but they're still a little soft. Wait, come back and check later on that afternoon or something like that. Sometimes you just need to let the fluid do what the fluid does. And everybody's different. Not everybody embalms exactly the same.
Yeah.
Jim said, what are the requirements in Pennsylvania to become a licensed funeral director and embalmer? I worked as a funeral director's assistant for about 30 years and have thought about relocating and starting school for mortuary science.
So I went to Tim's.
Yeah.
You went to school
John A.
in
Gupton in Nashville.
Yeah.
And the requirements are going to be the same. You need to have a bachelor or an associate's degree in mortuary science. You have to pass your national board exam, which is composed of the arts portion of the profession and the science portion of the profession. And then now I didn't serve my apprenticeship in Pennsylvania because I served at my initial license in Maryland. How long is the internship or apprenticeship here, Katharine? Is it 1 year or 2 years?
1 year. 1 year. Yeah.
Because I know Maryland is 1 calendar year from you receiving your apprentice license, and you have X amount of embalmings, X amount of funerals that you have to work, and X amount of direct burial, direct cremation, and traditional burial arrangements that you have to complete to submit for your full license.
Yeah, I think mine was a year, and I know I had to do 30 embalmings, and then my last embalming I had to go out to Pittsburgh for. But they've changed the requirements at PIM, so now it's only 20 embalmings.
Okay.
But yeah, I also needed to have 60 credits, my gen ed credits, to even apply to mortuary school.
Right, and that's going to be contingent based on the school that
Yeah.
you're applying to.
Mhm.
Because like for my school, they offered general education in their curriculum that you could take
Yeah.
versus having to transfer those in. So again, every school is going to be different, but that's the basics for to become licensed in Pennsylvania. And Ted asked, how many years does it take to become a funeral director? So it depends on, like Katharine said, do you have to have your general education credits completed? Because that could take a year or 2 years, depending on your course load. Then you have at least 18 months to 2 year, depending on your credit load of mortuary courses to get your associate's degree in mortuary science. And then you at least have a year to 2 years of an apprenticeship. So realistically, from start to finish, depending on where you are educationally, it could take anywhere, I would say, from 2 to 6 years to get fully licensed.
I mean, it took me a good solid year to pass my tests. That alone was very challenging.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that because
Yeah.
once you graduate mortuary school, you have to then sit for the national board exam. And until you successfully pass both of those exams for that the national board makes you sit for, you cannot apply for licensure at the state level.
Yeah.
And then you still have to pass the state exams.
Yeah. I suck at testing. It took me 4 years to get licensed total between schooling and testing.
Tim says, hey.
Tim and I spoke for, it was like 55 minutes yesterday. I was on the road back from Pittsburgh, and I was in a mood, just a lot going on, stress. And just with you, like I do the same thing with you. I call you, and I think sometimes only those of us in the profession truly understand what we're going through. We need to talk to another funeral director. But Tim and I we had a you-know-what session on the phone yesterday for almost an hour, and it was great.
You need that. Sometimes you have to have that. Absolutely. Because again, only those truly other funeral directors understand exactly what you mean when you say certain things and you're trying to explain stuff. So it's
Yeah.
absolutely needed.
And
Uh,
Dakota's watching.
Big dog.
Hey. And I also spoke to Dakota too yesterday. I had a lot of time to talk on the phone yesterday.
And then there was one here from Michael. There was an individual from our community who died suddenly. He was a gift of life donor. The coroner held up on issuing the death certificate since there were 2 different times of death listed. I'm assuming that the time of death is after the harvesting is completed and all life support equipment is turned off. I honestly don't know. I'm not a physician. I just get the time of death and I go for that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I would say, because you wouldn't be able to harvest the organs until the person was officially pronounced.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I think that might be technically considered murder.
Yeah. I would assume so.
Yeah, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm definitely not a doctor. So, but if there are 2 discrepancies in time of death, a coroner is not going to issue something until they have clarification. Absolutely.
And I want to lead into this, or that's a good lead into this. Oftentimes we'll have families that will, come to pick up death certificates, and the death certificate will say a certain time. And they're like, well, no, that's not the time that we found them. We found them at 8:30 in the morning, and they
Yeah.
were dead. And, the police or whoever, coroner didn't get out to the residence until 9:30. So why does the death certificate say 9:30? We know they died at 8:15.
Yeah.
We have to go based off of what
It's
the individual doing the pronouncement says.
yeah. So
Or, yeah.
again, nobody is, we're not able to sit there and say, you found your loved one at 11:26 on Saturday, but hospice is not able to respond out to 1:30 p.m. when hospice comes out and they officially pronounce that is going to be the recorded time of death.
Or I've seen death certificates where, say, someone was found in a home, like it was a welfare check maybe, and maybe the last time the family spoke to them was on Monday, but they were not found until Friday. It'll
Yeah.
say on the death certificate found and then the date. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I think I've had
Yeah,
dates
maybe
certificates.
down in like the lower, like where the
Mhm.
medical examiner or the coroner
Yep.
would put stuff in. Like I've seen date of accident
Mhm.
and stuff like that there. Donald asks, can a viewing and funeral be done in 24 hours? Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, as long as the loved one is able to be released from the hospital or wherever they're at, and we're able to get a signed death certificate that gives us our burial transit permit, we can have a viewing, we can have a funeral within 24 hours. Anybody that tells you that's not possible is lying to you. But all of the planets and stars have to align. Been out of work, having surgery. You call me all the time and help me. Fantastic. And DOA donor. So Douglas asks or says history. When I read about how many times Abraham Lincoln was re-embalmed till they got him in the ground because the journey from the grave was so long and was drawn out, it was fascinating. If you ever do a deep dive into Abraham Lincoln, and if you're interested in that type of stuff, definitely join us for the August show that we're going to have, where we're going to have Dwayne Hill on, because he's huge into funeral history, and he actually has a segment of books and things like that about Lincoln's funeral. But yeah, he was re-embalmed multiple times along the route because of the amount of times they stopped and had public viewings in different states on his way back to Illinois.
And we're pretty good about planning out months in advance for people that we're having on here with us to talk to. But
Mhm.
we've squeezed someone in for the month of July, and that's Nathan Morris. And it was really important for us to get him on sooner rather than later. And I've followed Nathan for a couple years now, but I think people are quick to judge in funeral service. I know there are people that are quick to judge Chris and I.
Yep.
Again, it's like we're out here on social media, but then people have an opportunity to come into our open houses and meet us at the funeral home and realize that we're normal people. We're just normal everyday people. But Nathan is one of those people that has been judged in funeral service, and I have been taking the time to really get to know him and really read his content and listen to his content. And he's a genuine guy. I think he has a good heart. He means well, and I'm excited to learn from him. I think we have a lot to learn from him, Chris.
Oh, I 100% agree. I'm really excited about that. Like again, I followed Nathan through when I was going through, mortuary school,
Yeah.
going through my course of licensure and things like that. So I'm very, very excited to be able to sit down, talk with him that evening. I'm also really, really excited because so we have that Thursday night, we have Ryan, which I'm telling you guys, if you're in the profession or if you're not in the profession, you are going to want to join us for this show. That is going to be there's not gonna it's just going to be crazy. But it's going to be a good crazy.
Yeah.
And you're going to walk away like flabbergasted. So definitely tune in for that. Make sure you're following as the hearse turns so that you get notifications when we are live and when we do announce things like that. And then that Tuesday is when we have Nathan on. So you're going to get a whole lot of us very quickly within a short amount of time. Then we have August, we have Dwayne. Maybe in August we can try because Mel. Try to get Mel on in August. So maybe
Mel,
we'll do show.
is it Crematory Mel? She's
Crematory
on Facebook.
Mel.
Yeah.
TikTok and Facebook. Phenomenal. Me and her have been talking. We've been texting back and forth. Really, really, really nice lady. She's got a heart for the profession. She's got a heart for cremation. And I think that will give a lot of folks the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. Again, I'm a crematory operator, but I haven't practiced now in a while. But someone that does it every day, all day, that is all she does. Is going to be phenomenal to have on the show. September, is that when we have Monica?
I believe so.
So we have Monica Torres, another person that has been, labeled or accused to be a funeral tainer. And unfortunately, gone through an extreme amount of bullying on social media just because of being transparent and communicating. And she's a phenomenal teacher.
I think she was actually, I want to say she was physically attacked by someone in the profession. Yes.
Really?
When I went out to the NFDA convention, that was when we started getting a lot of heat for our social media. She said, make sure your husband goes with you. I mean, there are people that really just do not like transparent funeral directors. They feel that, because their grandfather, 800 years ago when he started the funeral home says, we shouldn't talk about embalming, that we shouldn't talk about embalming. Well, those are the funeral homes that end up in the news because they want to keep secrets and they want to gatekeep and they do want to take advantage of grieving families.
That, or they're the funeral homes that end up being acquired by the transparent funeral home. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Then October, Tim, if you're still watching, we have to set a date for October for you. And we're going to have Tim back on. And then me and Katharine had talked a little bit earlier this week about, maybe doing a round 2 and seeing if we can get the Pennsylvania 5 back together again for a night of fun, mischief, and frolic.
Yeah. Tim, I need you to wear your tank top when we're on.
Speaking of clothes, so I bit the bullet. I placed my order with Drop Dead Threads. So
good.
We'll see when they arrive, and we'll have to get some content out for that. And then I don't know if we have anybody for November or December yet. I'll have to figure it out. So we've got a full calendar, and the thing is if you guys know anybody that would be interested in joining Catherine and I, my email is on the Facebook page. You can shoot us an email, you can message us and things like that, and we'd love to talk with you and have a conversation to see. Um, what else do we have? Well, we have to look for October. We got to be careful in October because Charlotte and NFDA is in October. So maybe when you and Nate are in Charlotte,
Mhm.
if somebody down there, maybe you take your laptop and you can join in from down there and we can do a show from while you guys are in Charlotte.
Maybe we could do that. And I know that there are people that have, dropped some names of people that we should invite on. And
Some folks are
maybe,
really hard for us to make contact with, guys. I know a lot of people keep tagging Lauren and stuff like that, but it's hard to for us to, to
yeah,
reach out. So there's some people that just are just outside of the realm and the wheelhouse of folks we
right.
can make contact with.
And there are also some of those people have been very critical of us.
Yes. Yeah. There's some
So
people that have gone very, very critical of us. And there's one thing that me and Catherine had talked about, we want to make sure that we're not using our platform to uh, boost folks that are not really supportive of the platform. So that's why folks that have, that we've talked about and, we kind of were like, well, let's have them on and have a discussion and stuff like, we don't want to add fuel to their fire. So
yeah,
we're protecting our platform.
yeah.
Yeah. Don, like I said, unfortunately, you guys look, if you guys keep tagging her, and if she wants to reach out to us, please, we'd love to have her. But us trying to reach out is very difficult. You know what? I've actually, Doug, I thought about reaching out to Elaine. Catherine, have you ever seen Elaine Hall? Well, no, because she's more of a TikTok
Yeah, I don't
funeral
do
director.
TikTok.
But
I've heard of her.
young lady, she really got a big following and started doing social media, TikTok stuff like that through COVID. Young lady, really nice. Her and her dad own the funeral home up in New York. And I'll be honest, in the past, I've tried to avoid the topic of death for some reason. But ever since my mom passed almost 3 years ago, I came across your Facebook page. I've been more interested in the process of funeral caring for loved ones passed on. I'm grateful for your very informative posts and videos. It helps me understand more about what my kids and loved ones will deal with when my time comes. Keep up the good work. And that right there is what it's all about.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
let's looks like we're down to about 47 people.
Okay.
Anything you want to wrap up with?
I don't think so. I mean, we have some open houses coming up at our funeral home. So if you're in the area, I know one in particular is on July 19th, and that's going to be, let me just confirm that. Yeah, Sunday, July 19th. And that's just going to be, you know, open the doors to the funeral home. We'll gather everyone in the chapel, kind of have a little bit of an introduction, talk about our story, and then free reign of the funeral home. We'll have staff positioned throughout the funeral home to talk to you about certain rooms. We're going to have the embalming room open. I have not been able to show the refrigerator. As much as I want to open up the refrigerator and show people, I can't, just because every single open house we've been caring for individuals, but I've
Yeah.
shown the prep room. And, like I said early in the video, when we first started this, the family that we were working with last week, they were at our open house and knew us through social media. That woman, she knew exactly where her mother was. She had been in that prep room. She knew where her mom was cared for. She knew the equipment that was going to be used. And so that's really important for us to remain transparent. But I have put the event on our Facebook page. So July 19th at 1 o'clock, that's open to the public. So come in, meet us, talk to us, ask questions, tour the funeral home, prearrange, whatever you want to do.
Daniel said, did you and Catherine hear about the 2 funeral directors for the brothers that happened in Colorado? We actually talked about it at the very beginning of the show when we started. So once the live ends, you can go back and listen to our commentary on that. But that's going to be something that we are going to follow a little bit closely to see. And then, actually, I didn't even see this one. How is a budget made for a funeral home when the number of clients is not known? Very carefully, sir. Very carefully. You really have to manage your business and you have to manage it smartly, because whether you get 15 or 16 families through the door in a month, or whether you get one through the door in a month, the bank and everybody still wants their payments. So you have to manage your overhead expenses. You may have to adjust things on the fly. But until you have a good year or 2 years worth of solid data, you're not going to know what that is going to be like. And then the other thing is there's a lot of demographics that you have to factor in when you're coming into thinking of budgeting and what type of business model you're going to have at a funeral home, because is the community growing? Is it thriving? Or is the community, no pun intended, dying and shrinking? Because there's only so much you can do as the funeral home owner or as the operator if influx isn't coming into that area, especially if the younger generation's leaving and eventually that older generation either passes away. Yes, you are going to handle those calls, but a lot of them may have been prearranged with the previous owner. So now you're going to take a giant hit and shortfall on it. So is it going to be scalable? Those are all things you have to factor in when you're trying to figure out, your business model, what your cost per call is going to be, and what you're going to what you need to set your general price list to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we've got a lot of fun stuff planned up, and who knows, depending on what goes on, there might be some more pop-up lives between now and July for sure, depending on people comment and what happens. And one thing I want to say, I really want to say thank you to everybody, because I mean, the page is continuing to grow tremendously, and I don't think we anticipated it to grow as fast
No.
as it has. I did see someone sent a message the other day wanting to know about like merchandise. So what I'm going to do today is sit down and look at a couple like kind of print on demand companies and see which ones offer the best affordability to you guys. Because I'm not concerned about us making money
Yeah.
on shirts or something like that, but I don't want them to be so outrageously expensive that it doesn't make sense. So that's going to be my job today. I'm going to sit down this afternoon and look at a couple print on demand companies, and then I'm going to let Catherine come up with designs.
Reach out to the T Outfitters. They do all of our merchandise and they drop ship. So
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
And yeah. So
Because
it's
that's where we have the merchandise. That's where the merchandise for Wagner, Elfner, and Berg
yeah.
comes from, right?
And again,
Okay.
I'm not focused on earnings. If someone wants a mug, get a mug, whatever. I
Yeah.
don't.
Trust me, I'd love to have you guys have some As the Hearst Turn coffee mugs and tag them on your social media. That would be fun.
David says we definitely need the nautical funeral home. David, I still need my boat. If I had a boat, I wouldn't be out on the boat today because it's a little cloudy.
Yeah, it's gonna
But
be choppy and seasick.
yeah. Yeah.
So I am licensed in Maryland and I hold a courtesy card in the District of Columbia, but not Florida or New Jersey. It really wouldn't make sense for me to be licensed in
Yeah.
those states that are so far away. just surrounding states, especially for me down at Harkins, I'm literally 3 blocks away from the Maryland line. So and I was licensed in Maryland prior to being licensed in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But I had fun.
What are you going to do the rest of the day?
All right, so I have to take and go out and help my parents. So I got to ride out to Gettysburg, and they switched over to DirecTV, and my mother doesn't know how to download the app to the TV, so I've got to go out and do that.
Is this Angela?
Yes. And then I need to. Then I'm coming back home, and then tonight we have a paranormal investigation.
Where's that?
So we're actually going to be at the Jenny Wade House in Gettysburg. So Skylar has that this evening. So that starts at midnight and goes till 3. So that's what we'll do this evening until tomorrow morning. And then I wanted to go down to Maryland because it's like the Sail 250 with like the air show and all the boats and all like that. But with the weather, I don't think they're going to be able to fly because like the Blue Angels are in town down there and the Thunderbirds and stuff like that.
Okay.
But other than that, it's really going to be relaxing, hanging out around the house. And I really need my phone to ring. That's what I need. I need my phone to
ring. We're
going
to pass, guys. We just want them to choose our funeral home.
That's yes. People pass away every day. It's when everybody says, "Oh, you're just sitting around waiting for someone to die." People pass away every day. It's I'm waiting for my phone to ring. So we'll see. You guys are just hanging out this weekend?
Hanging around, not doing anything. I was pretty tired when I got home yesterday. So yeah, we slept in. I'm still kind of in my pajamas. I did shower though for this. I washed my hair for you guys. But yeah, we're gonna hang around. I want to find hard shell crabs for tonight and just bring some crabs home. I think I'll go to Patty's in Dallastown, maybe. I know they have good hard shells. That's where Nate's dad typically goes.
Now, do they steam there, or do you steam at home? Okay.
No, they steam.
Okay.
And then, I had shared with you that we have a pending call that could come through over the weekend. And so if that call does come through, I will go out to the place of death. So yeah, just hanging around. This is one of those weekends where we really don't have much to do, and we're just kind of taking advantage of it, especially with the weather being nasty outside.
Yeah. And I mean, again, sometimes these are the best times. You got to just recharge, just ground yourself and just relax. Yeah. Because there's so many times where we're just constantly go. And we've talked about it before that sometimes, unless we're constantly doing something, we don't feel like we're being productive, and then it just doesn't feel good. But sometimes you need to just woosah.
Yeah.
And just relax. I can always bring, Mr. Slithers over, and Max can, snake sit for a couple hours or something like that.
Nope.
He's good for field trips now.
Mr. Slithers is Skylar's snake.
Yes.
And we don't do snakes here. We don't like snakes.
I don't know. Max is all about meeting them.
I know. Max is obsessed with Mr. Slithers.
We will have to bring him. We'll have to bring him to the funeral home.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm not going to be there.
Oh, no. Because I'm going to be live walking into the funeral home. I'm going to have to block you from that post so you don't see it live, just so we can record the reaction.
If you ever want to see me swear on social media, make sure you watch that.
Kelly, so it's my daughter has her own channel and her own page where like she posts that stuff on. So if that's where that would be posted, I'm not going to intermingle that with this page. But do you have any comments or anything on anything, Catherine, before we go?
Well, I just got a text from my friend Jenna, and she says, okay, we just watched the rental casket video. So the rental casket is going to be the casket that someone is viewed in prior to cremation.
Is it the one you did or the one I did?
Probably the one.
Okay.
I'm assuming the one I did. She says, when the body is cremated, can it just be the body being burnt, not a box or any other type of vessel? No, they have to be in some. They have to be in some sort of container? And also, does the body bag get removed before cremation? These are the questions my husband has off of that video. And the answer is no, they do not get removed from a body bag. We do not reuse body bags at the funeral home either. I get that question a lot. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
And before anybody starts jumping up and down about EPA and all that stuff, so the new body bags and new disaster pouches that we are required to use and utilize are and are friendly for cremation. You don't, it's not putting anything harmful into the environment. Katharine, did you ever find your rental casket?
We did, yeah.
Was it missing?
It was missing. So the one day I was doing a live, it was a day where Sam was in his dinosaur costume, and I wanted to show them the rental casket. Okay. And I walked in and like lifted up the cover on the one casket, and I'm like, well, this isn't the rental casket. Where's the rental casket? But it was in the prep room.
Okay.
And I also did find my car keys as well. Yep. Those somehow ended up at Chandler's mom's house. So I think that they got placed into a box. I don't know how they got there, but she had texted me while we were down at the beach and said, hey, I found your keys. And so Sam and I went over to her house this week to drop off some belongings and to pick up my car keys. I knew they would end up somewhere, but yeah. What an amazing family. That was just a beautiful funeral service for him. And through that, I got to really become close with his mom. And, you make friends in funeral service. So I made a friend.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I was the one that prior at my previous firm got the firm Green Burial certified, and we worked very closely with the Green Burial Cemetery in Maryland and did a lot of green burial. But yeah, and I mean, you can even be embalmed using the Green Burial Council approved fluids and things like that. But yeah, we can definitely dive into that a little bit more for you. Because that's yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, it was fun. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. If you have questions, send them over to us. And like I said, you never know, you may be the next inspiration for a Katharine or Chris video. And that's where we get a lot of our content from. It's just answering your questions and then calling out idiots. Calling out idiots. That's what I'm going to call them.
Yeah. I mean, just keep in mind that when you negatively comment on our stuff, we're going to find out where you work, but you're an extension of that funeral home. You're representing that funeral home.
And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not ashamed to pick up the phone and call the funeral home and ask them questions.
Me neither.
Hey, you have someone that's branding your funeral home that's being, you know what I mean? It's just, if you don't like it, that's fine. But there's a respectful way to do that. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Everyone has them, just like they have what. But there's a way to go about stuff. When's the next time you guys are on? Right now, our next scheduled show will be July 16th. I think.
Is it?
I'm checking the calendar. Yes, July 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when we're going to be with Ryan. Then the next scheduled time after that is July 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Nathan. Now, it is June 27th. That is a long time between June 27th and July 16th. And I'm sure there is going to be things that may come up where, I mean, Katharine does it sometimes, so she'll just go live on the page and, it's unannounced, or there may be times. Last night I'm walking, Molly, and Katharine texts me and she's like, hey, let's do a pop-up tomorrow. So those things may continue to happen. And we don't like to schedule the pop-ups in case something happens, and we don't want to have to come back and say, hey, we have to reschedule this or reschedule that. So those are, we try to give at least 12 to 24 hour notice, but sometimes we just show up.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
See ya.
Let's hit the button.